Hey all, welcome to ShareTreck. It's the 16th of May 2022. It's Monday and the start of a new week. Really excited about this week. Let us see if we can stay bullish for the week. At least the futures are pointing to be good. So with that said, let's get started with our daily update. Let's start off with today's headlines. The first one is that Russia-Ukraine conflict is still continuing. No resolution in sight so far, so that risk is still in place. There is good news from the Chinese front. China reduces housing loan interest rate by 20 basis points for the first time home buyers. This is likely to give a little bit of relief in the housing sector, where home builders are having a tough time. So this can stimulate the demand a little bit and stabilize the housing sector. That's the expectation. Elsewhere in Shanghai, they have announced a gradual lifting of lockdown starting today. And it's not clear how the lockdown is going to be phased out. But all we know is that it's going to start from today. So let's wait for more information. This is a positive news. And India has suspended export of wheats. And one of the reasons why that could be is also because India has a huge population and wheat is a staple along with rice. So probably it's a proactive measure from the Indian government to make sure its own citizens are able to get wheat and there is no food inflation because as it is, India has got a higher inflation rate and they are struggling to contain it. So I would think that from that point of view, Indian government is trying to make sure that if wheat was exported, maybe we may end up with some kind of inflation in India. Finland and Sweden are in the verge of joining NATO. They're almost there. Most of the NATO allies are welcoming them, except for Turkey. Turkey has got a few conditions. They want to impose those conditions on Finland and Sweden before they're accepted into NATO. And most of that has got to do with supporting dissidents. So this is a story that is evolving. But the main news is that most of the countries in the NATO fold are willing to invite Finland and Sweden into the fold. Elon Musk says that the Twitter buy is on hold. So this is getting messier and messier as time goes by. It has overhang on the Tesla shares as well, because Tesla investors are also worried that the CEO's attention is getting diverted. And the few tweets that Elon Musk has made has not inspired confidence lately. So that's the situation with regard to Twitter and Tesla. And in the current market situation, one would have hoped Tesla to lead optimism, but because of this Twitter mess, Tesla is also languishing a little bit, in my opinion. Next, let us look at the state of the markets. So here I have a chart which shows various ETFs which are sector-based. So at the very top, we have XLE, which is the energy ETF, and it's doing extremely well. At the very bottom, we got XLY, which is the consumer discretionary sector. And given the fact that we are entering a period of tightening interest rates and a potential recession, this is most likely to happen. The discretionary expenses will be shut down significantly. The next worst performing is XLK, which is the technology sector. Those are the areas where there are good buys available if you're a long-term investor and if you're patient. And the riskiest area right now is energy, because all the appreciation that has to happen, in my opinion, they have already been factored in, and the balance of risk to reward is skewed in the favor of risk on the energy sector, in my personal opinion. That's why I wanted to show you this chart. And the other chart I have for you here is the US 5-year, 10-year, and 2-year bonds. And you can see that the 2-year yields are at 2.595, whereas the 10-year is the highest, it's at 2.917. We want the 10-year yield to start coming a bit lower, and we also want the 2-year yields to go lower for our economy to improve. However, we are finding that as of Friday, the movement was upwards instead of going downwards. We'll have to wait and see what happens today after the market opens, because that's going to dictate the direction for Nasdaq. These are the earnings that are due for this week. And I'm looking at Walmart because it's going to show the resilience of Walmart as compared to Amazon. We'll see how Walmart looks at the future. We'll also have an outlook for the supply chain and potential food inflation. The other thing I'm looking at is Home Depot as well as Lowe's. Home Depot is reporting on Tuesday, Lowe's on Wednesday. Both of them will give an outlook of how they perceive the housing sector to be like, because if interest rates are going up, renovations would be under control. And if there's an outlook that says that potential housing bubble is there, then probably that will be reflected in the forward-looking statements from both Lowe's and Home Depot. So I'd be keenly looking to hear from them. Apart from that, John Deere is the infrastructure company, earth moving equipment and farm equipment. So I'd like to see what they are reporting for the future, because they are in the infrastructure sector. So those are the things I'm looking forward to. And they will kind of give us a clue of where the market is going to go, and also they will influence the way the market behaves going forward. So these are the stimulus from earnings this week, which I'm looking forward to. And with that said, let's go and have a look at the Nasdaq and all the indicators. Let's start off by looking at the futures. The Nasdaq futures are mildly positive, and as at the weekend, they were very heavily positive, but right now just 0.13% upside on the Nasdaq futures. So it's looking a bit shaky at this point of time. Let's go and have a look at the indicators. And first, I would like to look at US oil. So US oil is seen climbing down. There's a perfect doji candle out there. Today's candle is this small red doji candle. It pierced the resistance at 109.69 and came down, and then it bounced off this diagonal line of support, and right now it is firmly in the center. There is a slim body for this candle, and it's a perfect doji candle, so the market is undecided. MACD, of course, is bullish. Momentum is kind of flattening out, but it's above average. So market is still in the decision-making phase, whether oil is going to go up or not. So that's one of the things that makes it very difficult to predict how it goes. So one of our indicators is now ambiguous. PCC, let us look at put call. Now this is the put call from the 13th. So we still don't have today's, but as of close on Friday, the put call ratio was marginally bullish. It was, I would also call it neutral to bullish kind of a situation, because anything above 1 is bearish. Anything below 1 for PCC is bullish, and we are at 0.9948, so it's almost neutral out there. So in conclusive, let's look at VIX. So VIX again needs to bounce back up, and we'll see what happens today, because this is the VIX for 16th of May, and we can see that it has pierced through this diagonal. It has replicated what was there yesterday. It is still within Friday's candle body, so we are not able to say which direction it is going. But one of the heartening things for me is that it is still above the closing of VIX as of Friday. But it seems more and more likely that this diagonal is likely to become a resistance, because we are still below the diagonal. And if that is the case, it is good news for Nasdaq, because our next movement is going to be to test 27.20 support, which is combined along with the 50-day exponential moving average. So it's a really good situation to be in. So we got 3 inconclusive pointers and 1 which is slightly bullish. And let us look at the US dollar index. So US dollar index, we are seeing this small inverted hammer, and it is just at the same spot where we ended on Friday. So US dollar index is still trying to decide what to do. But the heartening thing is that it has not escalated. So as long as US dollar index starts coming down, we can see other assets like gold, Nasdaq start to pick up, because the funds are going to move out of the US dollar and get into those areas. And we can see that the MACD here is tending towards the signal line, ready to cross over. And the RSI shows that it's in an overbought condition for US dollar. And therefore, there is likely to be a sideways movement or cooling off. So we can expect that US dollar index is going to support the Nasdaq today. That's my assumption. Then let's go and look at the US 10-year bond yields. US 10-year bond yields are actually started higher today, and then they came down a little bit. But I think on the balance, if I look at where we had Friday's candle, Friday closed at a much higher level than where we are right now. We are at 2.902. we still have very strong support from the 20-day exponential moving average, and our MACD is bearish and moving away from the signal line. However, the momentum, even though it's pointed downwards, it's above average. So we'll have to wait and see what happens today. If we break below the 20-day exponential moving average, that will be a good sign for Nasdaq. Now let's go to look at the 2-year yields. 2-year yields are still flat. If you look at the last 3 candles, they're almost around the same space, and they're just below 2.607. They're trying to push and break through 2.607, but are unable to, because there is a resistance from the 9-day and the 20-day exponential moving average around the same vicinity. So it's a tough resistance. We also have a bearish MACD, and we also have momentum which is very close to average and moving flat. So there's a good chance that 2-year yields will also fall. That will be a great move for Nasdaq. It will make the Nasdaq look better. Now let's look at Nasdaq. Nasdaq today has not yet moved, but we can see pre-market that it's below its closing on Friday by minus 0.14%. So it's a slightly bearish tinge out here. And if I read it along with the futures, which are looking great at the weekend, have also become very marginally positive. I think there is a kind of doubt in the market. Things could go either way. They could go bullish or they could go bearish. We'll have to wait for the market open to see what happens, because right now all the indicators are a bit jumbled and it doesn't look very clear to me where the market is going. Now let us look at the S&P 500. S&P 500 is right now pre-market down minus 0.11%. MACD is bearish but tending towards the signal line, and momentum is picking up but below average. So it's very difficult to predict what's going to happen here, but there are definitely very strong headwinds for S&P 500, one at 405, which is this horizontal minor resistance, and the other happens to be the 9-day exponential moving average, which is this yellow line at 404.35. So between 404.35 and 405, there is a heavy band of sellers who are likely to push S&P 500 down. So we'll have to see what happens when the market opens. So we are kind of in an inconclusive stage when it comes to all the indicators that we have here. I'm going to look at crypto sector and gold. So first, let me look at gold. Gold is still on its way down. It has got a hammer, red hammer formation out here, and it has gone below where it ended yesterday on Friday. So the fact that gold is falling indicates that either US dollar is taking the money or some other asset class is taking the money. So in terms of inflation, in any country, if there is inflation, the value of the currency drops and the value of gold goes up. But the quandary that we are in when it comes to United States dollar, US dollar, is that US is a reserve currency, and because of global uncertainties, money is coming into the US dollar, and therefore US dollar is getting stronger. And when US dollar gets stronger, gold becomes weak. That's why we do not see the inflation play as far as US dollar is concerned. But in other currencies, gold definitely has improved. And also the opposite effect is that inflation is getting a bit dampened, because with a stronger US dollar, it's cheaper to buy crude oil, even though crude oil is denominated higher in US dollar terms. But for US, it is cheaper than it would have been if US dollar had lost value because of inflation. So there is a mixed blessing out here, but at the same time, it makes it very confusing to guess how the fund is flowing in the US markets, because due to risk avoidance, much of the funds from all over the world are coming into US dollar and propping it up, which is against the natural course of things. So take a country like India, for example. The Indian rupee definitely becomes weaker when inflation goes up. They are battling inflation at, I think, at around 6.5 to 7.5%. So they have a free market and a free float, and the rupee is responding accordingly, and it's becoming weaker. And when the rupee becomes weaker, gold denominated in Indian rupees becomes stronger. So gold is not stopped playing its role as an inflation hedge, but the distortion of the US dollar value because of flight of funds from high-risk areas into relative safety of the US dollar is propping up the US dollar. So for the United States, oil is still less expensive because the dollar is stronger. But for the rest of the world, US dollar dominated oil is becoming very expensive. So we should start seeing a lot of friction coming around in the global community on delinking the dollar from the price of oil. But this is something that might probably develop if the condition persists, because all these imbalances need to be resolved in order for the markets to resume their natural normal trajectory and for all the technicals to mean what it does historically. Otherwise, the distortion makes it very difficult to predict the market and read the signs. Now, let us look at Bitcoin USD. Bitcoin is marginally recovered. It's still under 30,000 and it's still about 28,993 support line. Bitcoin is technically looking very, very weak right now, and further loss in Bitcoin cannot be ruled out. But at the same time, because MACD is as low as it has ever been, there could be a dead cat bounce kind of effect. We still have opportunities to go all the way down. As you can see in this corner, we still have room for MACD to move down. So there's a good chance that we may have Bitcoin dropping further before the end of the day. Now, that said, let's go and have a look at our biotech share. I was waiting for the market to open before doing the biotech shares. So here we have the biotech shares on the right side panel, and you can see that Caribou Biosciences is still at the top, 6.58%, still the afterglow of positive results from their therapy. I think the same effect should accrue to CRISPR also later in the day, unless Caribou starts fading. So I don't know why CRISPR is not getting the same benefit. Of course, CRISPR has not yet released its data. That could be one of the reasons. But overall, I think today's market is a bit bearish. However, some of the most beaten down stocks in the genomic sectors are likely to be doing better than the ones that are not that beaten down. So that's my conclusion. Let's quickly look at some of the genomic shares just to see what the structure is looking like. So Caribou Biosciences is approaching resistance at 10.04. It's got full strength to go ahead. It's likely to get resistance out here and maybe end slightly below that at the end of the day. Verve has got a support from 9-day exponential moving average and resistance from the 20-day exponential moving average. MACD is bullish. Momentum is picking up, but it's still not significant. Novartis has got a gain of 1.19%, and it has blown past a lot of resistance, converting them into support. But there are still a few resistances that it needs to cross before it can be where it was earlier in the month. So we have a very strong resistance out here at this point of time of the 100-day exponential moving average and the 20-day exponential moving average, along with the horizontal resistance of 87.04. So it's going to be very difficult for Novartis to break through that today, given the fact that MACD is still in the bearish territory, struggling hard to get into the bullish side, and momentum is below average. So I think the gains in Novartis are going to be limited today. Perhaps tomorrow it could get more strength. Pfizer is up 1.28%, and it still has support from 49.83, and it's still being constrained by the 50-day and the 100-day exponential moving average, while being supported by the 9-day and 20-day exponential moving average with a bullish MACD and above average momentum. So Pfizer is likely to do better today going forward, but it's going to be difficult for it to break through this resistance. Regeneron is down minus 0.13%, still has support from the 9-day exponential moving average, but it has got resistance at 646.94, and that's going to be a stopping point for Regeneron today, because the MACD is not yet bullish and the momentum is not above average. So those things limit any potential for Regeneron today. Illumina is down minus 0.24%, but it's got plenty of gap to go up right up to the 9-day exponential moving average, which is sitting at 243.21. However, it's not supported by the indicators. Both momentum is absolutely low, as well as MACD is very bearish. So Illumina is not likely to get much respite today. Vertex is down minus 0.04%. Again, we have a resistance here at 248.18 and support from the 100-day exponential moving average. The resistance is pretty strong out here, so I don't see Vertex breaking through it today. IDNA overall index for genomics is minus 0.52, still bouncing off this line of support out here, which used to be a resistance for the longest time. And it is still constrained by the 9-day exponential moving average. MACD is trying to become bullish, but is not there yet. And momentum is below average. So overall, I think IDN indicates that the genomic sector has got a bearish overtone today, except for a few select companies. Most of the companies are likely to end in red the way it looks right now, unless some good news comes somewhere else. Perhaps any news from China or abatement of Russia-Ukraine war, some kind of declaration out there, or maybe a deal with Iran for releasing oil. Any of those things, if they happen, they can give a bit of a boost to the market. Otherwise, today is a bearish session after a couple of days of bullishness. So with that, I'd like to end my session today. Thanks and have a great day. I hope you had a great weekend. If you like this video, please don't forget to put a like out there. And if you have not yet subscribed, please subscribe and become a member of this community for everything related to CRISPR and stocks. Thanks and have a great day. Bye for now.